And as promised, I'm just going to jump right into the presentation on natural law. Now, what I'm doing this for is, one, to put a little bit of a break in the traditional outline that I set for the program. We've been covering the topic of the techniques of mind control for many, many weeks. We have gone over 11 of them, and I'll just briefly recount what those 11 methods of manipulation have been. We have looked at obfuscation, which is basically to put someone into a state of general confusion or bewilderment by disassociation of two different, completely different concepts or ideas. We looked at worldview poisoning, the poisoned view of human nature, of the value of the individual, and of the possibility for change, worldview poisoning. We looked at the exploitation of primal fears, fears that are rooted deep in the subconscious mind and are often there in the underlying genetic code of an individual because they have been present in the human psyche for thousands of years. So these are fears from antiquity, from the antiquity of the human species. And these primal fears are exploited by dominators to further control people. These, we saw, were the fears of darkness, the fear of predators, the fear of abandonment, and the fear of chaos. We also looked at technique number 4, which was the divide and conquer strategy. Okay, and this is the exploitation of our perceived differences between one another. The divide and conquer strategy. Race, religion, sex, nationality, politics, age, you name it. Any way that we see each other as different from one another. That will be exploited and used as a means to conquer the population. The 5th technique was the school systems, the indoctrination methods that go to work on us from very young ages to get us not to think critically and to get us to basically go along with anything the state says, to look at the state as, you know, Big Daddy. It's outcome-based education. It isn't based on actual, real, holistic intelligence. It is often purely a left brain form of intelligence, the indoctrination system. Technique number 6 was controlled opposition. This is basically dialectical mechanics, basic dialectics, which pits two opposing forces off against each other, gets people to choose a side so that they are polarized against each other and end up fighting each other instead of understanding the force that's essentially conquering and enslaving them. Technique number 7 was the monetary system, and this is one of, if not the biggest of all of them, because this is the universal worldwide religion of the masses of humanity. And it is a religion. This is what I call the one and only religion, money. It's a proxy for the true intelligence, the true care, the true will, etc. And it's completely fake. We saw how it's based on nothing except the belief in it. And it is one of the most powerful techniques that the dominators have at their disposal, the monetary system. We looked in depth at that. We also took a look at the control of the mass media. That was method of manipulation number 8. The mass media is basically working for a few major corporations, and they're essentially yellow journalist propagandists, not reporting anything that resembles truth, although every once in a while they'll throw a little bit of truth in there with the lie to get you to take the poison pill. But essentially, these are institutionalized corporations that are run by the same dominators that run the banking system and the military and the intelligence agencies, etc. You don't have a free press in this country. You have a controlled media. So that was technique number 8. Technique number 9 was food and medicine, and we spent many weeks on this because there's a incredible attack that is taking place on the physical body, because that is the gateway to the mind. If you weaken the body, you have access to the mind. And what is in our food is disgraceful. The poisons that are in what is passed off as food, and the pharmaceutical industry, they're peddling poison in the form of medicine. So we looked at that over many weeks. Great resources up on the website on that. You can go to What on Earth is Happening and click the podcast tab and always get access to past shows. And there's a lot of great information posted there as well in the form of pictures, related images that go along with these shows, and also documents and videos to go along with them to help people to study further on their own some of the topics that we cover. Over the last couple of weeks, we looked at the illusion of time. That was technique number 10. And we saw that time is an illusion. It is not really rooted in anything that is truly real. It is the getting us to focus our attention on the past, which is completely gone and cannot be changed. We can't do anything about it, so spending energy on that is fruitless. And to have us to basically dwell in a state of anxiety over what may happen in the future, which is also almost equally as pointless because the future is not here, it has not arrived yet. The power lies in the present moment and in present moment awareness. So we looked at that over the last couple of weeks. We also looked at time as a spiritual currency. We say how we spend our time, and indeed it is a form of currency because we get something in return for the quality of our time, what we use our time to pay attention to. So that was technique number 10. Last week we talked about the 11th technique, which is the factors of denial, hassle, and ridicule. And these are the ways that humanity basically polices themselves. They deny the events that are really taking place, even though they could essentially see it with their own eyes. They decide to stay in what is called the hassle-free zone, not to deal with any of the inconveniences and discomforts that may result from standing up and speaking the truth, and the ridicule factor, being afraid of what other people may think of them for coming forward and speaking the truth. So those were the 11 techniques that we've covered so far. In future weeks, we are going to be getting into religion, which is technique number 12, as a form of binding and mind control. We will be looking at subversive symbolism, the subversive usage of symbolism, which is a language in and of itself. We'll be covering these in depth. These will probably take up more weeks than the monetary system or food did. Okay? So these are the big guns that are coming up, the main techniques that are used to really, really get into the human psyche and keep it under deep levels of control. Finally, the 14th method is what I call chaos sorcery, and that is basically mass rituals or false flag events that take place in public in the light of day and are essentially there to inject pure fear into the human mind so that we will be softened up to willingly give up our sovereignty and our freedom, such that the dominators of the world can come in with even more subversive solutions to the problems that they themselves have created, and bring the lockdown further on humanity. Really close the entire society even further than it already has been. So that will be coming up over the next several weeks. Those techniques will be covered in depth, and in the coverage of those techniques, as I've said on the past on this show, we will be looking at different occult ideologies and different occult philosophies that are embedded in a lot of these techniques for mind control. So the next 3 techniques will really open up a initiation of sorts into different schools of occult thinking. So stay tuned for that coming up over the next few weeks on this show. What I want to let people know before I jump in with the presentation for this evening is that if you go to my website and you click on the radio page, if you're not already there, you will see that there is a link posted for tonight's show on the radio page. Okay, that's on the left-hand side. You click where it says Listen Live, and then it'll take you to the page where the player is at, and there will be a link there that says, for tonight's show, the Natural Law, Sovereignty, and Survival presentation. That is a PDF document. I compressed it as well as I was able to. I could have probably shrunk the images down in size, but I decided to leave them at their full size. I didn't put every single build of every slide in. I put the things that were really important in, and I compressed it as well as I could and turned it into a PDF document. So essentially what you can do is download that document and follow along with me and see the actual slides that I used in this presentation a couple of nights ago as I go through the concepts and ideas in the presentation. So before we jump in with this, let me give the call-in numbers just so people have them. And I'm going to take calls after I'm finished going through the presentation. That's unusual. I don't usually do that. I usually will open up calls at any time during the show, but again, this is a special show. So calls will be probably in the last half hour of the show or so, okay? And there are two call-in numbers. You can call into the TalkShoe number. That number for call-in is 724-444-7444. Once again, the TalkShoe call-in, 724-444-7444. The call ID number is 83515. Once again, the call ID that you'll have to put in after you call that first number is 83515. We're also simulcasting on the Intel Hub tonight, so that's broadcast over Blog Talk. The Blog Talk call-in number is 646-727-3387. Once again, 646-727-3387. All right. So this presentation that I gave a couple of days ago at Survive and Thrive, Philadelphia, was called Natural Law, Sovereignty, and Survival. And what I basically told the audience when I began the presentation was that this will not be a political presentation. This will not be a religious presentation. This will not be a scientific presentation as it is generally thought of in the term that modern science is thought of. And this will not be a New Age movement presentation, because all of those ideologies are essentially boxes for human consciousness that basically say anything outside of our box, the walls that we have erected, is unfit for human consumption. And unfortunately, the truth is too big to fit in any of those boxes. It is much bigger than any of those ideologies. The truth encompasses a much wider range. So we can't be limited to those four ideologies. We have to look outside of them for the answers. I hear the music. Be right back. All right, we're back on What on Earth is Happening. I was talking about that the truth is too big to fit inside the boxes that are erected by certain institutions like politics, religion, science, and the New Age movement. It's much bigger than that. And we have to look outside of the box if we want to find real truth. So what I basically had established in my What on Earth is Happening series of lectures, as I told the audience there the other night, is that what's really taking place on the earth is that a small cabal of people who don't have the general interests of the public at mind are really controlling this world, and through manipulation and techniques that basically subvert the human consciousness, they are getting us to hand over our sovereignty and our natural law rights. And in doing that, all the power and influence of this world is flowing right to them. And people don't understand how this works because they don't really know enough about themselves. Ultimately, all knowledge that is really a solution to this problem is self-knowledge. And we'll talk about that a little bit as the presentation unfolds. But essentially, what their main aims are is to put the human population into a trance-like state that resembles sleep, that resembles hypnosis, and basically bring in a completely closed society or a police state. And they're very close to achieving this objective. I believe they've partially have achieved it, and